Hey guys, found this video, was like, damn, I gotta make a reply to that fucking retard.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to Test Tube Plus. This is a podcast style show where we cover one topic each week and we get really into it. This week we're talking about gender identity. It's a really important topic. We're talking about terms used to describe gender. We're talking about what gender is, why it matters in the science of it, and that's what we're getting to today. What is the science saying about gender identity?
If we talk about the hard sciences like biology, they state nothing about it. If we talk about the soft sciences like sociology, then they state that gender identity is the personal experience of one's own gender.
Gender is something that is taught to us. It's not something that we are born with. Gender is taught to us from the moment we are born. They give us, little hats, little blue or pink hats, little blankets.
I'd personally not say that a color has anything to do with the gender. I do think we can associate colors with gender, but in a baby's brain, I don't think a baby associates the color pink with girl-ish and the color blue with boyish. I just think we do it so it's easier to identify them, to see, oh, this one is a female from the biological sex, and this one is a male from the biological sex again.
And a lot of people make it uncomfortable to talk about because some people are uncomfortable discussing why they are how they are. It's really hard to get that kind of self-awareness, but it affects everything that we do. So think about it. Pink for boys, blue for girls, right? Think about it. Did I say that right? Should it be the other way around?
I don't care which color you give to whom, as long as we agree on one color for one biological sex, because we need to be able to distinguish the biological sex of babies so we can distinguish how to medicate them and what kind of medications to give them and what kind of sicknesses they could have.
Blue for boys, pink for girls? Does that make more sense? It really doesn't. And in fact, in the Women's Journal in the early 1900s, pink was a more decided and stronger color, is more suitable for the boy, while blue, which is more delicate and dainty, is prettier for the girl. That was written in the Women's Journal, early 1900s. These things change over time. Culture determines gender. And a 2010 study of transgender people said that they knew their gender identity by age 5.
Was it taught to these kids too that they were that gender? Because you tell me that gender is something taught and not biologically innate.
So to imply, as some do occasionally, that transgender is a new thing, it's not new. We're just slowly starting to understand it.
But don't you find it interesting that the less struggles a culture seems to have, the more transsexuals it seems to inhabit it?
Gender is put upon us.
Hold on, what did you say?
Gender is put upon us.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And what was that you said before?
Gender is something that is taught to us. It's not something that we are born with.
If I were a computer, I'd say,
does not compute, does not compute, does not compute.
And the fluidity of that gender is because we grow and we age and we change. So we have the biological gender.
It's called sex, you dip.
We've got gender identity, which includes transgender. We've got gender roles. Those are very important for a lot of different reasons, but they're also not important.
There you have double think in action. They're not important, but they're also important. What the fuck?
Sexual orientation, which includes heterosexual, bisexual, homosexual, asexual, all of those are part of the fluidity of our gender.
No. Sexual orientation has nothing to do with your gender. Saying that is ridiculous.
So let's break this down scientifically.
Finally. Hopefully you'll finally use the scientific method in what you are saying.
While you're in the womb, every fetus is a female. They all start that way. The Y chromosome is added at the right time, which makes the body present as male. But even then, sometimes things don't develop properly. The clitoris comes from the same fetal tissue as a penis. It's called a homologous organ, which means that sometimes the clitoris is oversized and sometimes the penis is dramatically undersized. And that happens. It happens fairly often. Sometimes both exist, which is a hermaphrodite or an intersex situation. This happens quite often. Some animals, not really humans, but some animals are gynandromorphs, which is some cells are male and some cells are female. It sometimes will manifest as, say, a bird that's half one color and half another color. Hyenas, also something from the animal world, their clitoris is sometimes called a protopenis, again illustrating that these are homologous organs. The protopenis on a hyena can actually get an erection, they can have sex with it. These are female hyenas, and they can even urinate through it. So, to imply that sex or gender is fixed and always the same is wrong.
Yes, of course not. There are animals that don't fit in our two-sex system. There are clams that change their, well, sex with the water temperature. But for us humans, it definitely works.
Because things change, and nature is never 100%. We know that gender isn't tied to physicality because we've seen it in human populations.
I would like you to elaborate on that point a bit, because I don't really know what you want to say with that, or know what you mean with that in this situation.
Gender roles, which I mentioned earlier, are important because it helps us define what we are supposed to be doing in society, but they're also not important because they are societal creations.
I thought we were talking science, and science points in the other direction. It actually says that it's very much innate in females to be nurturing and very much innate in males to be, well, how we are. Competitive, for instance. Experiments on chimpanzees, for instance, seem to prove that.
Gender roles can hurt people.
Correction, people's feelings.
Boys can only be strong action heroes. Only. Even if they don't like that. Think of, movies like Billy Elliot, where he wanted to dance. And he was considered somehow less manly by people in this story. It hurt.
Oh, boo-hoo! Let me play a sad song for you on the world's smallest violin.
This is serious.
I know. This really is the world's smallest violin. See?
Sucks. Girls can only be housewives and homemakers. These are gender roles that people have. Girls must wear shoes which crush their feet.
It's hilarious how you say it like it's the law. Every woman must wear uncomfortable footwear or else you're gonna go into jail. Fucking hell.
Undergarments which cover because modesty, and support in specific ways that may actually be damaging to the girls' bodies. But they have to do this because gender roles say they have to do this.
That's where you're fucking wrong, you dimwit. They might think they have to do that, but they don't actually have to do that. It's not inclined in the law. They can do whatever they want. For instance, my momentary girlfriend doesn't apply to a lot of these gender roles, but to some she does, because she likes it. I don't force her to, the law doesn't force her to. She herself chooses to be a bit more girly because she feels comfortable that way.
Gender roles are important, but not important. Not that important. Examples like these are real. Men must work all day, support the family. They should never emote. They should never express feelings.
Where the fuck do you come off thinking that that is a gender role? It's something that adults are supposed to do. Adults are supposed to be in control of their emotions. They shouldn't cry like little kids. They shouldn't shout like little kids. They shouldn't throw a tantrum like little kids. They should be in control of their emotions. They can have their emotions, but they should be in control of them.
Those hurt people. It makes people not live a life that they want. And in the end, it's all bull anyway. The gender spectrum is another important part of science. It's been studied a long time in psychology. The gender spectrum, as it was once called, was a spectrum from feminine to masculine, a line that everyone fell on. But there's way more than that. No one is 100% feminine, no one's 100% masculine.
But people are 100% male or female. They either do have a Y chromosome or they don't.
But the BEM sex role inventory, or BSRI, was a flawed measure and a way to determine whether you were masculine or feminine or somewhere in between, which was called androgynous. And if you didn't fall anywhere on there, you were called undifferentiated. It's bad, because this does not grasp all of the complexity and nuance of gender.
Which you haven't proven or demonstrated.
Because we're assuming that there's only two right answers and everything else is sort of in between.
And you assume there are infinite right answers, so could we stop assuming shit and, well, get some facts up in here?
Better and a more modern way of looking at this is a gender continuum. Because people will change over their lives, they'll identify with different things at different times. There are a lot of different gender definitions: agender, or neutral, with no gender; androgynous, which is many genders; bigender, which is two genders that are combined; cisgender, which means you identify with the sexual parts that you have, that you were born with; genderqueer, which means that you're kind of figuring it out still, like gender fluid or gender questioning. There are all these different terms, more and more and more of them, and they're all important in the gender continuum, and it's confusing. It's really confusing.
It's not complicated. You know what's complicated? Quantum physics is complicated. That shit is just stupid. Clearly and utterly stupid, based on human emotions, not on facts, not on evidence, and therefore I can dismiss it without facts or evidence.
But it's valuable, because how we identify is important, and it's unique to each person, and it's going to change throughout your life. You may be born and believe yourself to be cisgender or agender, and then later in your life become more androgynous, and then even later in your life become gender questioning and not really sure where you lie. This is completely normal.
I don't think it's the mathematical norm. You call yourself a fucking science channel. I'm so fucking disappointed in you.
We grow and we change. Some people may want a little more science than psychology. I know it gets some flack. So they looked at gender in the brains of rats. They added an enzyme called estradiol, and that inhibited DNA methyltransferase, which is to say it changed their DNA just a little bit, or it inhibited a way that DNA naturally changes. This caused a change in the gender of these rats. Now, they didn't go interview them, they observed them. So physically, these rats were female, say the researchers, but in their reproductive behavior, they behaved as males.
Interesting how they behaved as males and not as some kind of gender-questioning polymorphic trans demigod.
That's the closest we can get to observing a gender change in animals. But if you look even further, their brains also structurally transformed. And this was after the sexual differentiation period had ended. So say, like rat puberty. Normally that's when sexual differentiation would blossom. However, after that, it's thought to be set.
And it still seemingly is, unless you screw with the fucking genetics of that living creature.
And it turns out you can affect gender in rats by adding this enzyme. To bring it to humans, gender also exists in our brains. MRI scans of transgender people who were in transition from male to female were compared to those of cis males and cis females. And the brains of the transitioned women were more akin to the gender that they transitioned to than the one that they were assigned at birth.
I would say most probably a result of hormone therapy. That is what it's fucking there for, mate.
That is to say, they were born male, transitioned to female, and when they scanned their brains also looked female. Gender is real. It's important, and it can be fluid, and it also cannot be fluid.
Still haven't demonstrated that yet. God, you're tiresome.
But talking about it is really hard.
No, I really want to like you and your channel. I really think it's a great thing. It's a great idea to explain things in a simple way for every commoner to understand. But please, if you talk about science and don't make up bullshit. I really wish to like your channel.